From prince to murder to prophet, the unfiltered story of Moses. This is the story of a fugitive who became a liberator, all because a bush refused to stop burning. What if I told you the fate of nations once hinged on a man arguing with God? History remembers him as a deliverer, a lawgiver, a prophet. But before all that, Moses was just a man with blood on his hands and doubt in his heart. His transformation from palace prince to desert fugitive to reluctant hero didn't happen overnight. It's a story of divine patience, meeting human resistance, a testament that greatness often begins with the most unlikely candidates. The unlikely candidate. 40 years earlier, Moses had fled Egypt, a prince turned murderer, now a weathered shepherd in Midian's wilderness. His past haunted him, a life split between palace luxury and the cries of his enslaved Hebrew kin. Here in the silence of the desert, he found anonymity, until the day fire defied nature itself. Imagine this, a shrub burning yet not burning away. To Moses, it was more than a miracle, it was an interruption, a call to confront everything he'd left behind. Let's rewind to understand the weight of this moment. Moses wasn't born into privilege, he was born into peril. As Hebrew sons faced systematic execution, his mother hid him in a basket among the reeds of the Nile. A desperate gamble that led him straight into Pharaoh's household, where he grew up straddling two worlds, the golden chambers of Egyptian royalty, and the knowledge that his true people labored under the desert sun, building monuments to gods they didn't worship. Picture a young man of dual identity, educated in Egypt's finest wisdom, yet carrying the blood of slaves in his veins. The cognitive dissonance must have been overwhelming. And then came the breaking point, witnessing an Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave. In that moment, something snapped. Moses struck, and a man died beneath his hands. The palace prince became a murderer, and then a fugitive. Egyptian privilege couldn't protect him from Egyptian justice. So he ran, far from the only home he'd known, into the vast emptiness of Midian's wilderness. For 40 years, Moses lived the quiet life of a shepherd. He married, had children, and perhaps thought he'd escaped his complicated past. The prince became a nomad. The man of two worlds became a man of none. His dreams of delivering his people faded into the daily rhythms of desert life, until an ordinary bush on an ordinary day refused to follow the rules of nature. The voice in the flames. From the flames came a voice. Moses, take off your sandals, you stand on holy ground. The God of his ancestors identified himself as Yahweh, I am who I am. Not a distant deity, but a promise. I will be with you. Moses resisted. Who am I to challenge Pharaoh? He pleaded, a valid question. At 80, he was no warrior. He stammered, bore old guilt, and knew the Pharaoh's wrath firsthand. Yet Yahweh insisted, I will make you more than enough. God gave signs, a staff that became a serpent, a hand diseased then restored, tools to turn doubt into authority. Still, Moses protested 5 times until God permitted his brother Aaron to speak for him. Reluctance met grace, fear met purpose. Consider the audacity of this moment. An 80-year-old man with a speech impediment, arguing with the creator of the universe. What courage it takes to say, I am not eloquent, I am slow of speech and tongue. What honesty to admit, please send someone else. These aren't the words of a hero from epic tales. They're the raw confessions of a man confronting his limitations. The burning bush wasn't just a miracle. It was a metaphor for Moses himself, ordinary yet extraordinary, consumed yet not destroyed by divine purpose. Each excuse Moses offered was met not with divine wrath but with divine accommodation. What is that in your hand? A staff. It will become your authority. You cannot speak well. Your brother will be your voice. This conversation in the wilderness reveals something profound about calling. It's not about our capabilities, but our availability. Moses didn't suddenly become eloquent or fearless. God didn't erase his past or his limitations. Instead, God worked through them, weaving Moses' weaknesses into the fabric of a greater story. When Moses asked, "Who am I?" God essentially replied, "That's the wrong question. The question is who I am." Identity wasn't found in Moses' resume or his failings, but in whose he was. The stammering shepherd would speak to Pharaoh not because he was qualified, but because he was chosen. From fugitive to deliverer, Moses returned to Egypt not as a prince but as Yahweh's messenger. His staff struck the Nile, turning it to blood. Locusts, darkness, death, each plague a blow against Egypt's gods. And when hope seemed lost, a path through the sea. The man who once fled a pharaoh's anger now led 1,000,000 slaves to freedom. His journey began not with courage, but with a question. Who am I? God's answer rewrote history. You are mine. Picture Moses walking the palace corridors he once called home, now an outsider, a wanted man, facing the successor to the throne he'd abandoned. What thoughts raced through his mind as he approached Pharaoh's court? Did memories of royal education clash with his new identity as a divine messenger? Did his hand tremble as he gripped the shepherd's staff, now transformed into an instrument of power? Each plague that followed was not random suffering, but targeted confrontation. The Nile turning to blood challenged Hapi, Egypt's god of the river. Darkness mocked Ra, the sun deity. With precise theological warfare, Yahweh systematically dismantled Egypt's pantheon, proving their impotence against the God of a slave people. And Moses, the reluctant, stammering 80-year-old fugitive, stood at the center of this cosmic showdown. The man who once killed in secret anger now witnessed divine judgment on a national scale. The former prince who fled responsibility now carried the weight of an entire people's liberation. When the final plague struck, the death of firstborn sons, the symmetry must have been painfully clear to Moses. He, a Hebrew son saved from death by water, now witnessed Egypt's sons claimed by death, while his people prepared for salvation through blood on their doorposts. Then came the Exodus itself. Imagine leading not an army but a massive, vulnerable population of men, women, children, and livestock through hostile territory. No military training prepared Moses for this. No royal education taught him how to feed hundreds of thousands in a desert. When they reached the Red Sea, trapped between water and pursuing chariots, Moses experienced the ultimate test of his calling. "Stand firm and see the deliverance the Lord will bring," he told the terrified Hebrews. Then, by divine command, he stretched out his shepherd's staff, that ordinary tool of his 40 wilderness years, and waters that had flowed since creation parted at his command. The fugitive had become a deliverer. The man who once hid from justice now embodied it. Through plagues, pursuit, and parted waters, Moses discovered that God's promise at the burning bush was true. "I will be with you." Not because Moses was exceptional, but because God is faithful. Wilderness years, the crucible of leadership. But liberation was just the beginning. What followed were 40 years of wilderness wandering, not just a geographical journey, but a spiritual formation of an enslaved people into a nation with laws, worship, and identity. Moses, the reluctant leader, became lawgiver, judge, and prophet. At Sinai, he ascended the mountain alone and returned with stone tablets inscribed by divine finger. The former Egyptian prince who once lived among hieroglyphics now delivered a new written code that would shape human ethics for millennia to come. Yet his leadership was marked by struggle. The people complained about water, about food, about Moses himself. They crafted golden idols while he communed with God. His own siblings challenged his authority. The man who argued with God at a burning bush now argued with God on behalf of a stubborn, rebellious people he was tempted to disown. In these crucible moments, Moses revealed both humanity and transformation. The man who once killed in anger now pleaded for mercy on his people. The prince raised in palatial isolation now carried collective burdens. His growing intimacy with God, speaking face to face, as a man speaks with his friend, shaped him into someone unrecognizable from the shepherd who first encountered fire in a desert bush. Modern pilgrims at St. Catherine's Monastery, gazing at a gnarled thorn bush. Today, travelers still visit a bush in Sinai, a symbol that God speaks in ordinary places to ordinary people. Moses' story isn't about perfection. It's about a reluctant soul who said yes despite doubt, shame, and fear. So the next time you feel inadequate, remember, the bush waits, the fire burns, and the question isn't are you ready, but will you listen? Perhaps the most remarkable part of Moses' story is its ending. After 40 years of faithful leadership, after receiving divine law and mediating divine presence, Moses stumbled. In a moment of frustration, he struck a rock for water instead of speaking to it as instructed. This seemingly small act of disobedience cost him entry into the promised land. The man who parted seas could not cross the Jordan. The liberator who delivered a nation from Egypt would not set foot in Canaan. Instead, God led him to Mount Nebo, showed him the land from afar, and there Moses died. His journey complete yet incomplete. This unsatisfying conclusion reveals a profound truth. Even our greatest heroes remain human. Moses, for all his transformation, never became perfect. His story wasn't about achieving flawlessness, but about surrendering to purpose. He died having never entered the physical promised land, yet having walked in intimate communion with the promise maker. His life challenges our ideas of success and failure. Was Moses a success? By worldly standards, perhaps not. He gave up royal privilege, spent decades in obscurity, faced constant opposition, and never reached his destination. Yet few humans have shaped history more profoundly. When we strip away the Sunday school simplifications and Hollywood dramatizations, we find in Moses neither superhero nor saint, but a reluctant, complex human being who dared to remove his sandals and approach burning mystery. His legacy isn't monuments or military conquests, but the revelation that ordinary people, even those with blood on their hands and doubt in their hearts, can become vessels of liberation when they finally say yes to the voice in the flames. Depth Notes highlights Moses' stutter, age, and fivefold hesitation. Exodus 4:10-13. Uses Yahweh etymology, Exodus 3:14-15. References traditional bush site. Incorporates overlooked details like Moses' Midianite wife, his relationship with Jethro, the significance of each plague against specific Egyptian deities, and the contrast between his hasty killing of the Egyptian and his later patience with the rebellious Israelites. Emphasizes the theological significance of the statement, "I am who I am," as both an assertion of divine self-existence and a promise of presence. Reflections and final thoughts. In the retelling of this epic narrative, every element, from the burning bush to the plagues that shook a mighty empire, serves as a metaphor for the internal and external battles we all face. The ancient desert, with its relentless winds and stark landscapes, mirrors the barren moments of our lives when hope seems as distant as a mirage. Yet, it is precisely in these moments of profound isolation that the seeds of transformation are sown. The journey of Moses is not merely a recounting of historical events. It is an invitation to examine the deeper questions of identity and purpose. What does it mean to be chosen? How do our past failures shape our future potential? And most importantly, can a single moment of divine intervention ignite the courage needed to overcome the darkness within? In every whisper of the wind over the Sinai, In every spark that defies the consuming flames of the bush, there lies a reminder that our lives are interwoven with threads of destiny and grace. Moses' hesitant steps, his stuttering words, and his ultimate surrender to a higher calling speak to the universal struggle against self-doubt. His transformation from a man burdened by guilt into a liberator who redefined the destiny of a nation inspires us to confront our own limitations and embrace the possibility of redemption. This script, though rooted in ancient lore, resonates with a timeless truth: that each of us is on a journey marked by moments of despair and divine revelation. Whether you stand at the crossroads of personal failure or the precipice of a bold new beginning, remember that the same divine spark that ignited Moses' transformation still burns within you. So as you walk through your own desert, be it a season of loss, uncertainty, or quiet introspection, look for the signs. In the flicker of an ordinary flame, in the quiet moments of solitude, there is a call to rise, to embrace your destiny, and to listen to the voice that tells you, against all odds, that you are enough. In the end, the story of Moses is not just about ancient miracles or legendary battles. It is a narrative of hope reborn, of fear transcended, and of a single soul's remarkable journey from darkness into light. May it remind you that no matter how daunting the challenge, the possibility of transformation is always within reach, if only you have the courage to answer the call. Join the journey with Deities Retold. If this cosmic tale of creation has stirred your spirit and ignited your imagination, become a part of our growing community at Bible Tales Retold. Hit that like button to help spread the light. Drop your thoughts in the comments to share your reflections, and subscribe to Bible Tales Retold for more inspiring retellings of timeless biblical narratives. Your engagement is not just support, it's a vital part of this ever-unfolding dialogue between the ancient and the eternal. Join us on this journey and let's explore these sacred stories together.